How do you allow your business to scale, yet build a business that allows you to work term time?
95% of our funding came from women. Am I going to get 5 women join, or am I going to get 50 women join? South Asian women don't tend to spend on their personal and professional development. It felt public failure. Am I okay with that? Do I still want to do this? The whole thing about don't work harder is really interesting as a South Asian woman, because that's all I grew up hearing. I want to take those 16 weeks of holidays. I want to be around. I want to be at every pick up and drop off. I don't want to miss any of that. I'm going to back myself. I'm going to choose me. See, when my back is against the wall, I will come out fighting. It's not making you money. It's costing you time, effort, and energy. I'm doing it because I think the cause and the mission of South Asian female representation matters.
Don't Work Harder is the show for entrepreneurs who are ready to catapult their business forward, because we believe it's not about working longer, harder, or smarter. It's about those braver moments. One bold move is worth 1,000 small steps. So rather than those small incremental movements that are moving you forward at a much slower pace, we're going to share with you the stories of successful entrepreneurs who've taken those big, bold steps to move them forward. This show is brought to you by Atomic, and I'm your host, Suman Randhawa, and I'm here not only to share with you the stories of entrepreneurs and the success that they've had, but you'll also walk away with the insights of what they did at that exact moment when they made that change that moved their business forward. Rupinder is a former 6-figure HR corporate leader turned visionary award-winning founder of Asian Women Mean Business, a thriving community supporting South Asian women through membership, mentoring, events, and one-to-one mastermind support. Rupinder shared the story of how she has grown her community through her memberships and her events over the last few years. Not only has she been able to grow her business, particularly her membership model, but she also speaks about how she now has a business that allows her to work on average just 30 hours a month and around her children. So she is working term time. This is definitely one where you're going to want to bring your notebook and your pen, as you'll be able to walk away with the exact steps that she took in that moment that has allowed her to build the model that she has. Rupinder truly has climbed some mountains, and I mean that quite literally. There's many mountains she's climbed over the last few years. And she also shares this very personal story of the part that faith has had in her building a braver business model. Welcome, Rupinder. Lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Now, as you know, this is about bolder, braver moments, and that's why you were somebody who, particularly with the work that I know that you've done, I want to share with the audience, was somebody that we really wanted to speak to. And I like to start quite big. We like to go in big and bold. We don't start gently and work our way up. So the thing I'd really love to speak to you about, I mentioned in the intro, you took a group of South Asian women up Kilimanjaro. And if I know this correctly, it's the first ever group of all South Asian women that have gone up Kilimanjaro. So before we get into the details, I would love to know, how do you go from running a membership, building a community, to thinking, I am going to take a group of women up Kilimanjaro? I'd love to know.
Yeah, we're going right there, aren't we?
We are. Yeah, straight away.
Yeah, and it doesn't really make sense in terms of the business model that I've created and the vision I had. But
yeah.
It was very much a personal dream. I got to the age of 40 and I heard a whisper, and the whisper was, I want to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro. It didn't make sense.
Okay.
I'm not sporty. I often say that I'm built for comfort, not speed. Yeah. I'm not sporty.
I love that.
Yeah, but I'm not sporty. I'm not athletic. I didn't even own a pair of hiking boots.
Right.
It actually didn't make sense. But sometimes you just have these whispers and these dreams that are planted in you.
Yeah.
And you don't know why it's come to you, but you just want to do it. So yeah, it came to me. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do was bring community. I'm a community creator. I'm a community founder. And well, actually, first of all, I spoke to my husband and he said to me, look, I don't want to do it. That's not my dream, but I think you should do it.
So you were thinking maybe it's something I'll do personally. You weren't thinking about the business.
No, not at all. I just thought, because I didn't think there were other people that would want to do it. I didn't think there were other brown women that would want to do it. So I turned to my husband and said, look, I really want to do this. Do you want to do it? He was like, absolutely not. But you go and do it. And I'll hold the fort at home. I've got the kids. Go and do what you want to do. And one of the things I started to do then was just started to speak to other people about it, and other women in the community.
Say it out loud.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's such contrary to what we've been told, because we're always told, keep your dreams quiet, keep it, you might jinx it, keep it quiet. But I just started speaking to women and saying, look, I really want to do this. Do you know anyone that might want to do it? And actually the whispers came back. And I always say I whispered and a roar came back, and 14 other South Asian women said, actually, we'd like to.
That gave me goosebumps. Ooh.
Yeah, it was incredible. So, and my husband, to this day, he laughs because he's like, well, I knew you were crazy enough to do it. How you've managed to find 14.
Where did you find the others?
Yeah, 14 other women who wanted to do it as well. But yeah, we put it out there. We put it out there through our community and said, this is what we want to do. We partnered with an incredible female-led travel agency who specialise in female adventure. And I pulled this community together. We all signed up. And as we were training for the climb, so we signed up in 2021, the climb took place in 2022. So we had a whole year to train for it. We're not athletes.
Yeah.
We're not professional hikers. We're mums, we're grandmothers, we're dentists, we're teachers, we're businesswomen, we're community leaders. We're just normal women who are doing normal things. But again, the community and our women in our membership, the women on social media were saying, like, how are you going to document this? How are we going to follow this journey? And the whispers I kept hearing back was, this is the first time it's happened. Never before has there been a group of South Asian women that have gone to Tanzania to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And so again, I put it back to the community and said, how would you like us to document it? And in my mind, I thought, oh, we'll just maybe wear those GoPro cameras. We'll do a blog. And they said, no, we'd love to see it. And that's what planted the seed of a film. And I have no industry experience.
Yeah.
I'm not a filmmaker. That's not my background. My background is corporate HR and psychology. And I just thought, right, if the community are saying that they're prepared to support this, let's see if we can do it. Found a filmmaker. And she's an incredible South Asian female filmmaker. And I remember the first conversation I had with her. This is how naive I was. I said to her, look, I'm taking the first group of South Asian women. We're going to Tanzania. We're going to climb this mountain. Would you be up for filming it? We think we can turn this into a documentary. And I said to her, I think it'll probably cost around £10,000. I'll get that through sponsorship. And so she came back to me and she said, no, Rupinder, it's going to cost £90,000. And I'm only prepared to do it if you will sign the contract confirming that you're going to meet that amount, and if those funds are in place. Because that makes sense, right? For her to have to come over, for her to film it. And so I went out to the community again and said, you said that you wanted this documented. We've got a filmmaker on board. We're going to turn this into a film. It's going to be a documentary. I do not have that money. If you think this is something that is worthy of being documented, if you think there's not enough representation of just your everyday South Asian women that look like us, who are following a dream, will you support it and will you donate? And within the first 10 days, we'd made £15,000. That had covered the travel costs. It covered the deposit for the filmmaker. And I just had that moment of, oh my God, we're doing this.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I didn't know you then, but I was watching the journey because I knew some of the women that were on, that were part of the group that were women that were going up. And I definitely was one of those people that was donating. So this, obviously it sounds really magical, but as I have met you in spaces and kind of spoken to you over the years, there's obviously the reality of making that happen being on your shoulders. So I know how the story ended. Story ended as you premiered a film. And I know that many of you women made it to the top of Kilimanjaro. As somebody who was bringing together that community, what was the very first thing that you had to do to take it from, because women will have been looking at you, they'll be going, okay, yes, we'll do it. How did you take it from that to even knowing who to speak to? Can you remember what was the first couple of things you had to do?
Yeah, I'm just such a firm believer in community and taking people with you. I believe in that, that whole thing about the 6 degrees of connection.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got a network, and people use that word network, I prefer to use the word community, because I think that's what it is.
Yeah, love that.
So if you can just put it out there and ask for help, ask for support, say, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Who do you know that can help me? People are generally very forthcoming with that. So that was my first take, was, okay, what are the steps involved in this? Well, we need a filmmaker.
Right.
So who's the filmmaker? Who do we have within our community that can do this?
Or who knows someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Found our filmmaker, Remma. She's part of the South Asian community. She had, a couple of years before, she had already put a film out there. It won lots of awards. It was a big thing in our community. Right, let me find her phone number. So let me see who has her number. Literally she didn't know me, called her out the blue. So this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? And she actually said, give me 24 hours to think about it and I'll come back to you. So she came back to me, she said, I'm in. And she said, but I can't do it by myself. Let me find someone that can support me as an additional filmmaker. She came back on board and said, right, we're in. This is how much it's going to cost. So then you're just sitting there and facing that, well, how am I going to get this money? I don't have this money, but who do I know within our community? So how are we going to get it? It's going to come through sponsorship. So if I give you this, if I give you exposure, if I give you brand exposure, if I give you a voice, if I elevate your brand, will you give me your money?
Okay, excellent. So you had sponsorship of the actual, the mission. Do I call it a mission?
Yeah, it certainly felt like a mission. Okay. I think that's a really good word for it. So sponsorship.
Yeah.
And we went big. We did go for some of the big corporates, but what I quickly realised was that actually it was the smaller businesses within our community that bought into the story.
Right.
And who were nimble and agile enough to say, here you go, here's the cash. Whereas some of the big corporates, so there's so many big brands that are out there that were and should have been in alignment with what we were doing. But the hoops we were jumping through to get to them. I mean, I remember I met one and he the sales director was very, very bombastic and said, right, put me down. I've got the whole funds for you. I'm going to do it. And I thought, oh my God, this is great. I've got one corporate sponsor. He's going to give me the whole cash. And I sat with him, I chased him and I didn't hear anything back. And I thought, what do I do? Like, do I launch this fundraising campaign or
am I waiting for this one?
Yeah, like this golden egg.
Yeah.
And something inside me said, no, you're going to have to launch it. And even if that corporate fundraiser comes through and you give everyone else their money back because we've got one big corporate, we'll do that. And I'm so glad I did that because he never came back to me.
Oh, he never responded.
He never came back to me. And I don't know what happened. Things happen, things shift, things change. I get that. But and there were many moments of that. So many moments of people promising help, people promising support, and things shift and change for them. Maybe it no longer aligned with what they wanted to do. But all the time, it's my name, my personal name, my professional brand that's on the hook. And you've got to just keep digging and got to find that. And that's the thing, I think, as long as you know what you're doing. But my goal was, I've organised this trip. We've committed to doing a film. I've got to get the money and make that film happen. And so literally it was like tick, tick, tick.
We're going to take a short pause to hear from one of our sponsors. Sponsors help us make the best show possible. Don't Work Harder is sponsored by Constant Contact, the digital marketing platform built with small business owners in mind. With Constant Contact, you can grow your contacts list, send out more emails, organise social media and events, and simply get more done with their advanced automation tools. It's everything you need to grow your business, advance your automation, and attract more of the right customers all in one place. Visit constantcontact.com to get started. It's actually a really good place to start because all of this fits into what you have built and what you are really known for, which is, you call it community, I'm calling it membership, but it's actually, bringing that club of people together. So when we think about this fundraising, actually, I think there's some really tangible advice there around sponsorship and nimble and agile and how quickly somebody can respond to what your requirements and needs were. How did it go with the fundraising then? So that was a big number you needed to hit, and I actually genuinely don't know the answer to this.
Yeah, so the fundraising it was very difficult, but we did it.
Right,
and
congratulations.
Thank you. And that was a combination of corporate sponsorship, of individual donations, of hitting up high net worth individuals, and selling the story and vision to them.
Excellent.
And selling that and telling them why it was so important. And it's very difficult because fundraising is always going to be difficult. And depending on what you're competing with, there's so many brilliant causes out there and so many incredible charitable causes and, other ventures that give you a return on the investment. I couldn't promise any of that. what I was promising them was this incredible story of South Asian women that would inspire generations to come. And if you feel that's important, if you feel that when you're turning on Netflix or Sky or Amazon Prime and you're not seeing enough women that look like us, well, I'm asking you, I'm giving you an opportunity, please be part of the solution with us. And you know, they were not everyone, and there were lots of no's, there was lots of ghosting, but we got the money. And the thing I'm very, very proud about with that fundraising was 95% of our funding came from women and came from South Asian women, because they could see the vision and they could see the story. And this is why I'm so passionate about financial independence, financial wealth, about women understanding, like, understand your numbers, understand your worth and your wealth, because we couldn't have done this project without these women.
That's incredible. 95% of that money came from females or female-owned businesses.
Yeah. How incredible.
Yeah, really, really strong. I mean, I want to definitely a little bit later go into what your biggest learnings, etc., were from it. But actually, what I'd like to do is think about, you talked about how community is really that's your magic. It's bringing that community together. Now, when you left corporate, I understand it was like the mentoring that really during your time in corporate, you started mentoring other women because you had realized that that wasn't there for you. How did you take it from one-to-one into launching the very first membership or community-based offering that you had? Can you remember?
Yeah, I absolutely can remember. So it was back in 2020.
Okay, so 5 years ago now.
Yeah, 5 years ago. And at that time, I was still head of HR. I was head of HR for an incredible human rights charity based here in London.
Okay.
And Asian Women Mean Business was my side hustle.
Right.
So it was the thing I was just doing on the side, coaching and mentoring and hosting the odd retreat here, doing a little bit of one-to-one work. But it quickly transpired that the needs of the community were such that I was getting lots of requests for, every time I put a date out for my one-day retreat, it would sell out. Every time I'd put availability out, it would sell out. And I just knew I had to do something that would scale that offering and would mean that I could leave my head of HR role, because I'd reached that point where I was like, well, I've been doing this for a long time now. What am I going to choose? And I just thought, I'm going to back myself. I'm going to choose me.
Yeah.
So January 2020, I handed in my notice.
Okay.
With this really big, bold vision. The world, and as we know, the world quite quickly changed.
I've just remembered what happened in 2020.
Yeah, something happened in 2020.
Oh, yes, that's what it was.
This little known virus came over and shook our lives.
So that was Jan.
Yeah.
And we obviously went into lockdown in the UK in March.
We did get into, and I sat there in March and I thought, and I didn't qualify for furlough. I'd left this incredible role off the back of I was going to do all of this stuff. And the climate was so different. I thought, I don't know what the pivot is here. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just, again, the whisper came back, and the whisper was, you're going to launch a membership. It's going to be online, and you're going to make it affordable and accessible. And all of these women who are in your DMs and saying, help, I don't know how I'm going to navigate this difficult time, you're going to invite them to come and join this membership. And so that's what I did. So I took 10 days, I remember it vividly, I took 10 days out to really map out, what does this membership look like? What am I going to offer? What am I going to call it? How am I going to launch it? And I just went for it. I had no choice. I think my back was against the wall. I'd left this really safe role. Everything felt really uncertain. And I just thought, and I think this is the thing about my personality, when my back is against the wall, I will come out fighting. And I was like, right, I'm going to come out of this fighting. But not only me, I want to take my community along with me. And I want other brown women to come out this. I want them to come out this pandemic stronger, healthier, more resilient than we were going into it. So we launched the membership. We did a founding member launch.
So how many of you were involved in the launching of it?
So there was me and my wonderful tech guy.
Okay.
Who is, and for those of you who have tech support, it's like tech/therapist.
I mean, literally, yeah.
Help. So because I am not technically savvy, so there were things there that had to be in alignment where I just thought, I don't understand how this jigsaw works.
Okay.
I get the marketing, I get what I want to offer, I get the coaching and the mentoring. What are the mechanics behind this? What's the delivery? But I mean, maybe we could talk about that, but I'm very proud about how we did it. And again, how nimble and agile we were. Because I didn't know at that point, am I going to get 5 women join, or am I going to get 50 women join? was very new. I mean, it's a niche within a niche within a niche. Memberships now are very, very common.
They are, yeah.
And I think the pandemic really saw an escalation of that.
Of course.
Because I certainly know I launched Inspire Club, and within 6 months, I saw very many similar communities being launched as well.
Right.
But I was one of the first to go. So you're kind of like building it. You're building this rocket ship as you're taking off. And so, yeah, me and my tech guy, Jatinder, just literally the two of us in our dens trying to figure out how we were going to do this.
And what came first? Was it the building of the tech or the people that you knew wanted to join the community? What needed to be in place first?
So I went with the people.
Okay.
Because as long as there was some semblance of structure, so as long as we have a landing page, as long as there's a mechanism to take payment, as long as afterwards they know what they're doing, that I had confidence that he would have in hand and it would be in place. That's quite simple.
Yeah.
And particularly it's quite simple compared to where we are now. What I wanted to have conviction with was, I don't know how this is going to land. This has never been done before.
Yeah.
I don't know. And actually the feedback generally was South Asian women don't tend to spend on their personal and professional development.
Okay, yeah.
So the pushback I was getting was, are you sure?
From who? That's quite an interesting one, the pushback. Who were you getting the pushback from?
So some of my peers,
right,
who had been doing it in different communities. So some of them had been doing marketing and sales, and they were saying, look, Rupinder, we don't tend to see South Asian women joining our program.
Yeah.
Are you sure this
is almost like you were sense checking, is this a viable offering?
Yeah. And also when I go to events, I've always been into personal and professional development.
Okay.
My degree is in psychology. I love psychology. I love coaching. I love mentoring. I've always been into that world. But when I go to those events, very rarely do I see people who look like me. Very rarely do I see women that look like me. So even when you go into, just, now that I've said it, maybe go and have a look around some of these audiences. South Asian women don't tend to go to those types of events. Yeah. And so what I was hearing back was, are you sure that they're going to make this investment? And I, the only thing I had was this gut and this intuition of, well, my DMs are exploding. Every time I've put an offering out, they've taken me up on that. So I'm just going to have to go with it and see how this lands.
So when we were talking about Kilimanjaro, the biggest obstacle that it feels like you needed to knock down or deal with was that huge amount of fundraising, almost 6 figures, right? Yeah. In fundraising. When it came to first starting the community, what do you feel was the pivotal moment where you knew you were right, there was an audience and they were going to pay?
I'm not sure if I knew that before launching.
Okay.
So the pivotal moment really was my own self-doubt and my own mindset.
Right.
And this noise that I'm hearing around me.
Yeah.
Are women going to invest in themselves? Do they do this? Do women in our community want this? And having to park all of that and just really dig deep and say, I think I've got something here. And also sense checking it. But this is the thing, even when you sense check it, you're going to get, if you ask 5 different people, you're going to get 5 different opinions.
Yeah,
so a couple of people will be like, a couple of women were like, yes, we love it. A couple were like, not for us. A couple of men were like, I can't see my sisters or my mum or my wife joining this. So you've got to park all of that and just say, I'm going to go for it. And the other thing I was really trying to grapple with was this sense of, if I launch, it's so public. If people don't join, it's actually a really public sense of failure that I've put this out there. I've gone out on social media and said, I'm launching this membership. I'd love for you to join. And then if I don't get the numbers joining, if I don't get the momentum, it's almost like that tail between my legs moment. And that's the thing I had to sit with. Am I okay with that? Am I okay with kind of having egg on my face and feeling embarrassed and feeling, because these are big things, aren't they? We do feel embarrassed. It felt public failure. Like, am I okay with that? And I just sat with it. I thought, no, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Just as I had to sit with the fundraising with the Kilimanjaro and think, if I put this link out there and I only raise 50p, that's a very strong signal that people don't want this. Am I okay with then saying, well, I've heard your message. You don't want to film about South Asian women climbing Kilimanjaro, so we'll pull the fundraising. Or do I persist with it? So do I keep going? But am I okay with that initial potential
So that's
failure.
a question that you find that you're good at asking yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really great question to ask. And so you had you had your tech guy. I think we've all got a tech person, haven't we, that we really rely on. The membership, you got people to sign up. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a success
Yes.
when you
Yeah.
launched.
Yeah.
5 years on, I know that the Inspire Club still is running and is running strong. What is it that you have done that has meant you've been able to sustain a membership model? Because actually retention is a big piece of that. What is it, do you think, that you do?
Yeah, retention is always an issue with membership models. And so we had 135 women joined us in that very first founding member launch. Over the last 5 years, we've had 700 women come through Inspire Club.
Wow.
And that's international, so across Europe, Canada, America, Australia. So it has been on every measure, like it's been a success. So financially, in terms of impact, in terms of testimonials, what women are telling me what works for them. But that's not to say there haven't been moments.
To say, what's the struggle?
Yeah, the moments of, do I still want to do this? Am I doing this right? Am I still adding value, particularly 5 years on? And I think for those of us who have memberships, we all definitely saw this upturn in numbers during COVID and all of those subsequent years, because everyone was at home. Everyone turned to online development and various things. And then we naturally saw a drop off and people went back to work and the offices opened. And that was quite disheartening to see that churn, to see people leave. But you've just got to accept that's going to come with it. And some of the best stories I love about my community are women that say, Rupinder, I've been part of this community for this long. I feel like I've outgrown it. I love those stories because it means that I've served my purpose. The community has served its purpose. We also have a higher tier of Inspire Club, which they can go into if they want to. But equally, if there's something else that's more in alignment with them, I go with my blessings. And also, if you decide to come back, because we had that over 5 years, so many things happen. We've had people leave and come back, and I've been a witness to so many different milestones in their lifetime as they have been in mine. But the only thing I'm really clear about is that we're here to serve a purpose, and we're here to help women wherever they are in their personal and professional development, to make it accessible for them, to be a stepping stone to bigger, bolder things for them. And whenever they feel like their time's up, and they go with our blessings.
And what do you think it is that you have learned about membership models that maybe a lot of people miss, that has allowed you to keep going for 5 years? What is it, do you think, that people miss?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I always use the word community. I use the word community for audience. I use the word community because that's what it is. It really is that. And so I'm very, very cognizant that when women join Inspire Club, they join because of something I have said or something they've read that has resonated with them. So they want a little bit of me. Now, we're at the point we've currently got just under 200 members.
Okay.
So there's only so much I can give of me, but I'm very, very aware of that. And the memberships that I perhaps see that don't do as well are the ones that lose sight of that, and where the numbers become just that. They're just numbers, they're commodities, these are individuals. They've joined your community with hopes and desires and dreams and aspirations. My goal is very, very simple. I want to get you closer to where you want to be. And so we've got a library of content. I've got live sessions. We do all of these different things to get you closer to where you want to be. And I've tried to make it as accessible as I can. But you've got to show up and do your part too, right? It's that adage, I can't do the press ups for you. That you've got to come and show up and do your part.
And actually, that's such an interesting point about really the reality of knowing that when you build a brand and you have such a strong personal brand, a lot of people are buying into you. So as the community has grown, and you're so right, I've spoken to so many entrepreneurs here that have spoken about, we have those highs of the numbers of 2020, and it's sometimes there's a success, but you're not quite at the numbers of 2020. But regardless of that, obviously that's 700 over the last few years. A question to ask you then, how do you allow your business to scale yet build a business that allows you to work term time? What is it that an entrepreneur needs to be able to do for both of those things to happen?
Yeah, I think it's about having clarity on your own vision and how you want to live your life, and what is it like, what are your non-negotiables. And it's really interesting. So I've turned down funding twice for Asian women in business. I've had investors come to me. I've never gone out for funding, never gone out for investment. I've been approached where people have seen the trajectory, they've seen the scale, they've seen the impact, and they've said, we'll give you our money, like, let's do this together, let's scale together. And twice I've turned it down. And even now, I could quite easily do a very easy, like, friends and family round. Like, very easily I could bring on investors. I could bring on. I've chosen not to do that because I love the model I have. I have 2 children.
Yeah.
They are my number one priority. I have made it my lifestyle is, I want to work, but I want to work around my kids. I want to take, what feels like, I think they have something like 16 weeks of holidays a year, but I want to take those 16 weeks of holidays. I want to be around summer and end of years, and I want to be at every pickup and drop off. I don't want to miss any of that. So my one fear has always been, if I bring on investors, that dynamic is going to change because I'm going to be answerable to them, and I don't want to do that. So I've been very, very clear that how I'm going to scale this is through sustainability, through bootstrapping, through reinvestment organically. Whilst also just keeping very, very mindful about how I want to live my life. It's that fable, that story of the fisherman who's out fishing, and investment banker sees him and he says, what do you do? And and he's like, well, I'm fishing, and then I spend the afternoon with my wife and my kids, I sunbathe. And the investment banker says, well, why don't you scale? Get 3 ships, get this, get that. I can help you. We can do this, and we can make this much money. And the fisherman says, and then what do I do with my time? And he's like, well, you can spend time with your family and your kids and he's like, well, I do that now. I do that already.
So interesting.
And that's how I think about myself. Like, why would I want to take on investment? Why would I want to take on all of that additional pressure when I have set up this business in such a beautiful way that it enables me to step away, because we have automation, we have the technology that supports that. And it enables me to live my life in a way that feels absolutely in congruence with me and what I want to do. And I think that's really important because I see so many people doing fundraising rounds, and you see that. And I've seen, my peers who have done something very similar, built a learning and development app, who have built communities, who have managed to get, and they say to me, Rupinder, why don't you let's build a pitch deck? Let's go out and pitch. And it's really easy to get sucked into that because that sounds really exciting, really sexy, really dynamic. Who doesn't want to stand there and say, I've raised £40 million in fundraising? But you've got to ask yourself, am I prepared for the trade-off that that's going to give me? And I live such a beautiful life with the business that I have, and I'm not prepared to trade that for more money when I already do really well with what I'm doing. So those are the decisions that I've made. Other people look at them and think, love that, would love that. Others think, well, actually, I would have taken the money and done this. And that's fine as well. But I've got to be comfortable with what I'm doing.
So from a top line strategic point of view, I think that there's some really useful questions there for anyone who is in that position where they're thinking, at what level do I want to scale to? In terms of building boundaries then, in building a business that serves but allows you to work term time. So you've mentioned a couple of things there. Automation. What else does a founder who's able to do both those things need to have in place?
Yeah, so boundaries is really important.
It's a good word, isn't it?
It's such a good word. And it's something that resonates with me because I've actually burnt out twice.
Okay, this is an interesting mission. Like over these...
Yeah, not over the last 5 years, but in my corporate career, particularly, so, when you're growing your corporate career and you're trying to do all the things that you think you should be doing, and it's not a good place to be in. And the lessons I learned from that is I will never allow that to happen. And when I sat with myself, I just thought, why did that happen? How did that happen? And I had to look at myself in the mirror because it was my inability to say no. That I can't take that meeting, I can't take that phone call, I can't do that, I can't do this. So over the last 5 years, I've been very, very clear about my boundaries and what I say yes to and what I say no to, about how much travel I'm prepared to do. And it's constantly that what's the trade-off? What is this costing me? Where do I need to be? So the thing I always say is, how am I going to add value? And is this going to, if I say yes to this meeting, to this call, to this event, to this podcast, is it going to get me closer to where I want to be? Is it going to get the community that closer to where they need to be? It's not easy. And
I was thinking that as I'm sat here, because it's how do you get the balance right between doing those things, which sounds so sensible, and then my head, as I was listening, thinking about times when I've done that, how do I make sure it's not interpreted as rude?
Yeah. And also, I'm just such a chronic people pleaser. I think so many women are.
Yeah.
And I want to help people, and I particularly want to help women in my community. It's so hard to say no. It's so hard to say, no, I can't just get on a call with you. I can't just do that. So then I think, well, what have I done? Well, I've got a membership that I've tried to make as affordable and as accessible as possible. Come into the membership. I try to keep my events as affordable and accessible. I try to think about so many different things that enables other people to have access to me, that I can help support and network and do things for them. But I actually sleep really well at night. I don't know if it's an age thing as well. I just think I'm doing the very, very best that I can while I'm raising a very young family, while I have, so many of the pressures that so many women have.
Course.
And I think so many of us are in that generation now where we have a young family, but we also have aging parents.
Absolutely.
And we're kind of squeezed at the middle. And I'm just trying to do the very, very best I can, very mindfully and intentionally with all of that. And that does mean I'm going to annoy people. I'm going to piss people off. There's going to be people out there who thinks, who does she think she is? She's too big for us. She hasn't responded to my message. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So I try to navigate that as gracefully as I can, whilst just being very mindful of my highest priorities, which are my children, are my members, are my clients.
And have you, you talked about being able to invest back into the business. So we heard about your amazing tech guy who kind of helped you build the vision and get started. What does that look like in terms of support around you now? Have you invested in a team, or is it still, are you keeping it as lean as possible?
Yeah. So I've kept it really lean, and I love being lean and nimble, and I think there's something about. I like to move quite quickly, and it's nice to have a team that moves quite quickly with you.
Okay.
So we have a full tech team that support us, because we have quite a big tech stack now. We have, we have an app that was in development for 2 years that we launched. So we have this incredible app that has our learning and development courses, our community on there, and all of that. I don't manage that. We have a tech team that manages that. I have a VA that manages my diary when we do events. So I'm not an event person, and I'm not a detail person.
Yeah, you're the visionary.
Yeah, I'm big vision. And so I have a project manager who manages our events and anything that needs that level of detail. And what they say to me is, I'm almost like, I have a vision and I go for it, and I leave a path of destruction behind me, which they're like, the tech team's trying to build out the tech, the project manager's trying to smooth things out, and the VA is just like... But because we've worked together for a while now, they kind of they know where my head is, they know where my heart is, they know that I'm going to... I'm going to have dropped plates and balls, and they're going to be the ones that are picking it up. And then we just add in freelancers. And the great thing about our community is, if I need additional support, I go out to my community and say, actually, I've got 10, 15, 20 hours this month because we're doing an event. Who's got VA experience? Who's got event experience? Because I love to have, it's so beautiful to pass those opportunities back onto the community.
Absolutely.
And have them come in and be like, yes, we want to support this. And I love that, because they get me, they get my heart, they get the vision, and they're going to be a part of it with their soul. And that's so important to me.
And what changes as the team grows? How do the decisions change? What do you have to consider now when you are recruiting, or the last big recruit that you had versus the very first person who came on board? What do you think shifted?
I mean, I've made some real errors in recruitment, and I think lots of I've spoken about this with lots of founders. The biggest thing is this understanding that not everyone is as invested and cares as much as you do.
That's the thing when you're a founder, right?
Yeah, and it's really, the first few times that really got me, I was like, why don't you love this business as much as me? Why aren't you prepared to stay up until 1, 2 in the morning and do it with me? And then it was that realization, well, why should they? Like, why would they? So once I managed to get my head around that, it's then understanding that's where my psychology and the HR comes in. What is it that's going to motivate them? Why do they want to be a part?
Great question to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do they want to be a part of this? What is it that's going to engage them and make them excited? And so that's when I recruit now, that's the thing I look for. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be a part of this? As opposed to, you know, I'm an event planner. I've done lots of events. It's, I love what you've built. I want to be a part of something that's about amplifying South Asian women. I want to be a part of this mission and this movement. That is more important to me than anything else.
So you almost look, do you have that mindset of what is it that can't be taught? And what do I know that I can teach them and I can upskill them on? So like, you know, you're feeling your emotion, their heart, that's something that just has to be innate. What's your kind of thinking around that when you're thinking about taking people on? How high does the skill need to be versus the heart?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because all of my recruitment so far has been in areas that I recognize as being incompetent. So for example, technically, I couldn't necessarily recruit someone who didn't have the technical competency that's required to run a membership, to run the things that we're doing. Like he needs to be able to do that.
Right, in that role.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also, he does. I could have gone to anyone, but I went with someone who gets my mission, gets my heart, gets what I'm doing, who is actually, if I have to WhatsApp him at 6 a.m. in the morning and he understands why it's important to me, he's going to get up and do it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's that balance, isn't it? Of technical competency, but also I'm part of something that's bigger and bolder than, you know, I'm not just doing tech support for a massive corporate here. This is someone that's trying to do something incredible with the community that she's creating.
Yeah.
So that has been how I've led the recruitment and how I've led people that I've brought on board. So, and it's the same with logistics. So because I know I'm not detail orientated, I know spreadsheets are not my best friend. So I need someone who's comfortable with the numbers, with formula, with, you know, projections and those things, and also gets our bigger mission. So there've been times where I've done things that the numbers don't make sense.
Yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily make sense. And even things like the Kilimanjaro trip, that was a distraction from my business. If, you know, people said that to me, why are you doing this? Why are you doing the film? We don't understand it's not making you money. It's costing you time, effort, and energy. It's costing you the mental headspace that you could be putting into more commercial ventures. Why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing it because I think the cause and the mission of South Asian female representation matters. It matters hugely. I want our daughters to watch this film and say, if our mums can climb Kilimanjaro, we should be dreaming bigger. Like, we should be doing Everest. We should be like, this is what we can do. And so that isn't going to make me money, but the mission there is so important. So bringing in partners that can understand that, and also a team that can understand Rupinder's busy doing this crazy thing, so we just need to steady the ship. Like, we need to make sure the tech is on point. We need to make sure the membership retention, we're holding on to our members. We need to make sure if there's any hiccups happening here, we're ironing them out so that they don't even come to me because, you know, she's off fundraising, trying to make this film happen. And that's what happens when you have a great team on board, because they all bought in. They were like, and all of them bought in. They were like, what do we need to do in order for you to do this? How do we take care of business as usual? And, you know, taking weeks out to go and climb a mountain, not being around. You've got to have full faith and confidence in your team that are behind there supporting that.
Such a good point. Of course. You're out of the business.
Yes, yeah.
But there was a business that was still running.
Yeah. And there's been a business, we came back in 2022. In 2023, I took a 3-month sabbatical. For the first time in my adult life, in my adult career, and again, I think I was on the verge of burnout. And burnout because I was fundraising for this film. Some of the help I was promised didn't materialize. It was brutal. The fundraising environment had shifted in 2023. So people that had promised us funds that, you know, they were like, okay, go and do the client, go and get the film, show us the raw footage, we'll give you the money. Came back, showed them raw footage. Sorry, we don't have that money anymore. And I'm still on the hook for, I think at that time was something like £30,000.
Gosh, the stress.
The stress of that. And so I just thought, right, I need to take a step back because this is going to completely burn me out. And I could see it because I'd been there before. So I took 3 months out. 3 months out. But because I have a membership model, because we have that monthly reoccurring revenue, because I have a team that I trust who could hold the fort, it meant that, you know, I could just go undercover and do what I had to do just to be me and feel like me, and then come back 3 months later and say, like, right, let's go. I've got this.
And that's obviously huge, you know, to have recognized it. And to have done something about it, which was to take some time back. But actually, if I'm thinking as somebody who might be listening, who would love to have a business that is able to run when they are not around, hopefully it can be for nice reasons too, like going on holiday where you actually get to turn your laptop off. Is that something that does that have to be in place from the beginning, the access and availability someone has to coaches within a membership model? Or have you found that, how receptive are people to you making changes as time goes on?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I was going to say I think I'm very lucky, but I don't think it is luck. I think if you're open and transparent and take the community with you, so ask for feedback, ask, you know, what's working for you, what's not working for you. So we do an annual survey of our members. I'm very, very close. I mean, you know, we're not talking 2,000 people, we're talking 200
still,
so I'm very close to understanding what's working for them. I also think I have a lot of goodwill because I'm open and transparent.
Okay,
because
really great tip.
Yeah, because I share, I talk about what's going on and how I'm feeling, and and they seem to be responsive and receptive to that. And so what that does mean is that when I've had to step away, or where there's been a restricted access to me, they've understood that, because it's not been hidden. It's been very open about, guys, I think I'm on the verge of burnout.
Yeah.
And these are the reasons why. You've seen what I'm doing, but if I don't take some time back for myself now, I think this may potentially be catastrophic for me. Well, no one wants that. So you do what you need to do, and you know, putting mechanisms in place so that you're fulfilling what the requirement is and why they've signed up. And by the way, can I tell you, in those 3 months, not one person left. Not one person left. There was so much goodwill and so much respect for how open and honest I had been with them, that, and it just, they were like, we got you. And actually it was really lovely. The messages I got was, and I've constantly had, is, Rupinder, you had us, we've got you. You do what you need to do.
And you know, it's really interesting. What I see is that as people grow in their businesses and as businesses get bigger, actually there is more and more goodwill. There are probably slightly more boundaries in place in terms of how coaches might work or what access they have. Yet when people are starting out, they have this belief that we have to overgive. And I think everybody can reflect back to that time and think of the time where, you know, you gave away way too much advice, your prices were too low. And this is an interesting takeaway for people who are listening and watching, which is that actually you can charge more, you can make more money, and you can still be giving less access than you might have when you were first starting out. It doesn't mean it's any less value.
Yeah, absolutely that. And I mean, I've been there, and we've all been there, where you would literally, I was giving away the kitchen sink, like give. But then you realize that it leads to overwhelm. And you've got to meet people where they are as well, and just ask them, like, what is it that you want from me? So we've changed our model a few times. We've added things, we've taken away things, we've had various iterations of it, but always in dialogue, always with, this is what I'm thinking, this is what we're going to do. Particularly with a membership, I've been doing it for 5 years. Things are going to shift and change, and there's going to be things that they like and things that they don't like, but that I've got to make sure it works fundamentally, and ultimately it has to work for me. Otherwise there is no membership. So, and that's what's worked for us, and particularly because we've always been open and transparent about it.
It kind of reminds me of, and I know we've both got corporate backgrounds, and not everybody who is watching and listening has a corporate background, but it reminds me of a really good leader. You know, when you have a very good leader in a business, what is going to keep staff motivated, particularly when times are tough, is where there is open communication, and where people feel like they are taken on the journey with you and they are making the decisions with you. So it's interesting that you come from that background and how quickly you've translated that. Now, I know when we were like kind of talking and we were prepping for this, we had a really interesting discussion about the name of the podcast, Don't Work Harder. And you're like, oh, there's just like, I want to understand a little bit more about what the ethos was. And I was explaining to you that so many people believe that don't work harder almost follows with, work smarter, work bolder. But actually what we've seen is it's about those braver moments. And it's not saying that you don't have to work hard, which I wanted to have that discussion with you because you shared with me, you said, we had an amazing Q4, an amazing Q1. I think you said you had your two biggest quarters, within that 6-month period. So what I would love to know is, how did you balance that hard work with the right work that meant you were able to take those brave steps that has brought you in to your biggest 6 months in your, in the history of your business?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I love that conversation we had, because what I was thinking about was the whole thing about don't work harder is really interesting as a South Asian woman, because I grew up, that's all I grew up hearing: work harder,
Absolutely.
work harder,
Yeah.
outwork everyone else. And I think that's what led to some of the corporate burnout. And then I just thought, oh, this is interesting, don't work harder. But as I was saying to you that, so I had a really great Q4, I had a really great Q1 this year, far exceeded my expectations in terms of financial goals, but it also meant I had to work harder.
Okay.
In that I had to be more accessible. I took on a couple of corporate clients in addition to the membership the clients that I was serving, did a couple of other things. So I was probably working more hours than I would normally. Now, having said that, I probably work on average maybe 30 hours a month. A month.
Okay.
Because that's how we're set up. Like, that's how, so yeah, those 6 months I was working double that, which I know most people are working 60 hours a week. But for me, that I've very deliberately chosen to have a model where actually I do one-to-many. So I don't take on very many one-to-one clients. I've chosen to scale programs and membership in that way. But it did mean I had to work harder, I had to work more hours and make myself more accessible than I was previously. And then that leads to other questions like, why am I doing this? What's the goal here? But I had a very specific goal for those 6 months. And I love having a goal and I love being able to achieve it. And also I wanted to dial it back. So now, we're heading into summer and I'm taking all of summer off. I'm taking the next 2.5 months off. I'm off to Nepal later on this year. We're doing an Everest Base Camp trek for 2.5 weeks.
With the community?
With the community. I'm taking 8 women with me.
So you weren't put off?
No, oh no, we've done stuff. Yes, 2022 we did Kilimanjaro, 23 I did Peru, we did the Salcantay Pass, we went to Machu Picchu. 2024 our film was premiered, so I couldn't do a trip that year and my soul was craving it and missing it, and so we put Everest Base Camp in the diary. So there's 8 of us going to Everest Base Camp this year. But the point being, the way my calendar works is that there have been moments where I've had to, whatever that is. So maybe from 30 hours a month to 60 hours a month. For someone else, that might be, oh my God, that's like a week for me. But that was, for me, that was double what I'm doing.
And it's the intensity of the things that you do.
Yeah, and the intensity of the delivery. So some of those corporate clients had, I had some targets there I had to meet. There was delivery that I had to do. And so much of what I'm doing is there's an expectation of a transformation. There's an expectation that if I work with Rupinder, I'm going to go from this to this. Well, that's a sense of obligation and burden and responsibility I have that I need to meet. So there's lots of headspace that comes with that as well, which I don't think is always talked about. So you might not be coaching or mentoring for 60 hours, but I tell you what, I'm going to bed sometimes thinking about, who else can I connect with that person? What else can I do to move them further along? And you know what it's like, a name pops up or an event comes up and certain things happen. But it is about that. And I just think it's really important to be honest about those, that you're going to have seasons in your lifetime where you do need to work harder, where you will need to be leaning into, maybe I'm going to have to do a couple of evenings a week. And you're going to have those conversations. I know I've had to have those conversations with my family, my children, my husband, and say, I'm actually working 3 evenings a week this week, or I'm trying to fit this and I'm trying to do this in. But again, transparency, openness, candor. This is the reason why I'm doing it. This is the goal. This is the objective here. Are you on board? Yes, we are. And as long as it's for a finite period of time, you can make it happen. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do what I did in Q4 and Q1 for the rest of this year. I couldn't.
And that's why it was that season.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm so G'd up by listening to you. I've got a few other things I want to just talk to you about. I spoke in the intro about how you had a group of women at the House of Commons. And also, as I'm listening to you, you talk a lot about not only the community that you've built, but the connections. So it feels like it's a very relevant question to ask, which is, how have you worked on being more seen and being more visible?
I've really struggled with visibility and being seen. That often comes as a surprise to others. But it's something that I've really had to work through, because I am an introvert and I like my own space. I like my own time. I like to be by myself. Mm-hmm. But equally, I've really had to lean into why visibility is important. And I'm advocating for South Asian women to be seen,
right,
to be amplified. And I feel like it's so important that if I'm advocating for them to do it, I need to be seen too. So some of the things that I've done is I've utilized social media to my best advantage. And that could be any platform. So I'm not really on TikTok or any of that, but I love LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That naturally sits really well with me, because I like to write thoughtful, considered posts. And that sits really well with my personality. But even things like, having a branding photo shoot. I remember the first time I had to have that done, it felt so awkward. But we need to be seen and we need to be visible. And I'm just so mindful of that. And so what I would just say is, pick a platform that works for you,
Brilliant.
pick an avenue that works for you, and go all in. So for me, it was LinkedIn. We had a podcast. We've done 2 seasons of the Asian Women Mean Business podcast. And that was lovely because it wasn't visual. So it was auditory, and it didn't matter what I looked like. But there is so many ways that you can elevate and amplify yourself. If I could do what I do without being visible, I probably would have chosen that option, but very quickly it transpired that, and everything we've spoken about today, to build trust, to build that relationship, to build a community, well, people need to know you. They need to know, who are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? What drives you? What wakes you up in the morning? That's what builds community. So I had to get comfortable with that. And that's the only reason I've built myself up in terms of the visibility. I'm not in this for clout or vanity or any of that, but I've just had to hold it dear to me. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this because I want it for others. And if I want it for them, I need to be able to do it for myself.
Yeah, you continue to obviously share so much there that I think is tangible, and that will also ring true with so many people who do struggle with being more visible. Yet we know to build a business, if you can be visible, it will help you. They say, make the boat go faster. My penultimate question I would love to ask you as we kind of close for today, which feels like it's an important question to ask, and it's not one that I've asked earlier. But when we talk about bravery, what part has faith had in your journey with bravery in business and in life? You're a woman who has now climbed many a mountain.
So faith is a huge part of me. I'm obviously very visible of faith. I'm a Sikh, and you can't look like this without it being a huge part of who you are. And for me, the bravery really came 10 years ago when I came into my faith. And for example, when I started to cover my hair and started to wear a badga, that was a moment of courage. Because up until that point, I had conformed to very Western ideals of beauty and what that looks like. And actually, one of the questions I've always had back to me is, do I think my corporate career would have excelled had I looked like this back then? But I can say with absolute confidence and conviction that the success I've had since I've come into my faith, and that success, whatever metric of success that is, whether that's money, whether that's impact, whether that's how I feel about myself, has been like this. There's like a direct line, because my faith is one of bravery, is one of courage, is one of being told that, you know, we are meant to stand out. Because the idea is that if ever you're in trouble, look around you. If you can see a Sikh, so if you can see a man with a turban or with a woman with a turban, if you can call upon us. So what that means is that you've got to embody those qualities, and you've got to embody those qualities in everything that you do. And so much of this conversation today has been about honesty, courage, transparency,
Absolutely.
boldness. All of that is anchored in my faith. And any moment I've had where I've thought, I can't do this is too hard. Any moment I've had where I've wanted to just sulk away and just be like, this is just too much, is the moment where I've leaned into my faith and thought, no, what would, you know, I believe in God. I believe in this higher power. I believe in this. What would I do if I knew with absolute certainty that I have a higher power looking after me? How would I walk? How would I talk? How would I behave? How would I act when I walk into those rooms? And when I've used that as my compass, things have always gone beautifully.
Thank you for your beautiful share there, and you know, your own very personal story of kind of faith and bravery. We have a closing tradition here. I'm gutted that we're at the end, but we are, which is, I would love to ask you, what are you reading, watching and listening right now? It's really kind of my own personal list, but others might get some inspiration from it too.
Yeah, I love that. So what am I reading? I've just finished reading this incredible comedian, Zana Garg.
Oh,
and
yeah.
She's an American comedian, American-Indian comedian. I've just been finishing reading her memoir.
Okay.
This American Woman. Incredible. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Not my usual kind of reading, but hugely inspirational and uplifting. What am I watching?
Yes.
I'm actually watching a replays of a really old box set called Revenge.
Okay.
Read into that what you will.
Right.
But again, a really feisty, formidable lead character, female, who is just taking vengeance on people who wronged her father.
Okay.
And what was the last one? What am I?
Reading, watching and listening to. Is there any music?
And what am I listening to? So I love listening to upbeat Bhangra music.
Okay, yeah, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, tell them what it is.
Yeah, so that's music that hails from North India in Punjab. I'm Punjabi, and it has a very particular beat to it.
Okay.
So,
It's a mood lifter.
Yeah, and if ever you follow me on Instagram, if I'm in my office, I'm on my standing desk on my treadmill, that's the music I have pumping out, listening to and getting
Amazing.
going.
I'm sure there'll be lots of people Googling right now. Rupinder, thank you for joining us.
I'm delighted. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to Don't Work Harder. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. This show has been brought to you by Atomic, the home of epic business growth. Head to our website at atomic.site to hear more about our business programs and epic events.